everyone. So now we move on to grey squirrels, a species that's a sort of iconic and charismatic, and one that does divide people between those that think they're cute and cuddly and others that see them as an absolute menace in the countryside. So they were introduced from England and Ireland from 1876 because people at that time were moving species all over the world, and why not? It doesn't cause any problems, does it? And they were introduced to Italy from 1948. They were now established and widespread classed as an invasive non-native species because of their negative impacts. And then in 1930, a law was passed prohibiting their importation and keeping because people realised the problems they were causing. So in terms of their negative impacts, they are much larger and more aggressive than our native red squirrels, and they outcompete them for food and habitat. They also carry a disease called squirrel pox, which they only carry, they do not contract, but which is almost always fatal to red squirrels. And they will outcompete and cause local extinctions of red squirrels without squirrel pox, but in the presence of this virus, they die out 25 times faster, and you can lose 80 to 90% of the population in a matter of weeks. Less well known is their impacts on young broadleaf trees. Their bark stripping causes damage, stress and fatalities, and it's an important time when we are trying to plant more trees for all of the various ecosystem service benefits they provide. And in England and Wales, they're thought to cost at least £37 million a year in terms of lost trees, replacement trees and reduced carbon sequestration. As you can see from these graphs between 1945 and 2010, the spread of the grey squirrel and the massive reduction of the red squirrel across the UK and Ireland. And in Italy, they're also having a similar impact where they've been introduced there. So they are classed as an invasive alien species in the EU, they are classed as an invasive non-native species in the UK, because they are causing similar declines in red squirrels, they're having impacts on trees, and so it is a Europe-wide issue. If they make it out of Italy, that is the main red squirrel range, and that will mean some serious problems across Europe and for the long-term existence of the red squirrel in general. So in 2015, the UK Squirrel Accord partnership was established. It currently has 45 different signatory organisations that cover the conservation and forestry sectors and government. And our aims are to help protect red squirrels, tree health and woodland ecosystems by finding ways to reduce negative impacts of grey squirrels. As you can see here, there are a huge range of different organisations involved, and we're very thankful to all of our partners. We work on a lot of different issues, from policy, fundraising, knowledge sharing. Communications is a major focus for us. Historically, there have been various negative articles. So this is one from, I think it's 2017. And this is one from 2018. Lots of negative articles around grey squirrels and their lethal management. And people asking, why are we doing this? And this shouldn't be happening. Again, the cute and cuddly effect. Then in 2022, there was a huge BBC, and it got picked up by a lot of the more wider mainstream media press around our work on contraceptives to limit grey squirrels. This press push was seen by 113 million, well, it had 113 million views, which Lord Canul, who you'll hear from later, said was like everyone in the UK seeing something about it twice. Now, that's not quite the case, because I've seen quite a few of these, and some people won't have seen any of them. But you can see what the reach has been. And since then, they've just been increasing, and also, you know, things like this which have come out around the government supporting it. So it's not just something that's being done by us, it's something that's supported by government. And we've got to the point where now people are talking about eating grey squirrels. We've talked about you can't talk about killing grey squirrels, and now people are talking about eating grey squirrels. And on live television, breakfast television last year, one of the presenters actually ate a squirrel burger. Now, you'd never have got that back when you had those previous articles, because the backlash would have been huge. But you can just see the change that's happened over time. And we hope to do a media content analysis to assess this. So one of the reasons that the press has changed a bit is because we are talking about trying to find alternative methods. So this study was done in 2018, and the kind of management options on the left, the contraception and biological control, which are things like predation by goshawks and pine marten, are seen as the most publicly acceptable ways to manage grey squirrels. And the least publicly acceptable are basically anything to do with humans killing squirrels. So we have to move, we need the public on board with this. There are 3 million grey squirrels across the UK. They're in people's gardens, they're in people's parks. We need the public on board. So the UK Squirrel Accord is working with the Animal and Plant Health Agency, there we are, to develop an oral contraceptive and species-specific feeding hopper. I know Sarah, wherever she's gone, will talk to you more about the feeding hopper side, and if you want to know more about the oral contraceptive, Rebecca Pinkham has a couple of posters out there, and I'm sure she will answer any technical questions. But essentially what we're doing, and it's funded by the UK Squirrel Accord and supporters, and we're very grateful to everybody, is to create something that's non-lethal, but it's cost-effective, less labour-intensive, because it requires a lot of man-powers, or person-powers, to go out and manage grey squirrels. Something that's more publicly acceptable and that can be used as an alternative and complementary method. So you could use it alongside traditional methods, or you could use it just on its own in areas where people just won't use anything else. Again, Rebecca's the best one to talk to me more about this, or Giovanna, who's previously worked on this, but we're basically focusing on the immunocontraceptive, an immunocontraceptive that stops the gonadotrophin-releasing hormone from creating all of the other sex hormones and therefore creating infertility. One of the things we've been doing is looking at messages. So how do we bring people along with us, and what messages do we need to put on the feeders so that people understand what they are and are unlikely to interfere with them? So we did this behavioural insight study with the DEFRA team, and we asked 3,000 people questions, giving them the message on the right about what the device is, the feeding hopper. We put it on the feeding hopper. And we had 6 message types. So we had a neutral message, which was just that. We added an economic message, an environmental message, an alternative to lethal methods message that benefits red squirrel conservation, and it's got support from many stakeholders. And asked people, would they put a feeder in their garden? Now, the message seemed to have no overall effect on the likelihood of interfering with feeders or having a feeder in their own garden. Unfortunately, we didn't quite nail what interfering meant, and we didn't really define that. So we're not sure whether that meant they'd touch it, they'd move it, they'd destroy it, and I think that's something we do need to look into. 90% said they were unlikely to interfere with feeders containing contraceptives, which is positive, although 32% thought others might interfere. And then 39% said they were likely to install a feeder in their garden, 38% unlikely, and they had various concerns around attracting rats, other pests, attracting more grey squirrels, would it have an effect on their children or pets, birds? And so we provided them some additional information that it would be installed at their convenience, it's free, it doesn't damage the garden, we'd remove it after 2 weeks, it's not harmful to any children, pets or wildlife. And following that additional information, 56% said they were likely to install a feeder in their garden. So just providing that extra bit of information increased the number of people. Future work. Now, does 56% of people putting feeders in gardens create a population crash? We don't know. What messages do we need to increase that 56%? Again, something for further research. Further engagement into positive public engagement, with fertility control. So what messaging, what communications work, and I know someone's going to talk about communications tomorrow, but what communications work do we need to do now so that people come on this journey with us? And by the time the oral contraceptive and hopper are available, people are engaged and wanting to work with us and put this out. And I know lots of people already email me and say, is this available now? And they're very interested. And it's not, but that is a really, really positive response. Looking for greater collaboration outside of conservation and forestry sectors, where I think the message is really there now. A lot of conservation and forestry people understand, and the sector understands the problems and the potential solutions. But outside of that, I think there needs to be work done, especially with people like, I say, the garden owners, the park owners, councils. Looking to educate and engage young people, so making sure that young people understand those problems and solutions. There's a GCSE, Natural History, being created and should be launched soon, and that will have an invasive species element in it, and within that will be a specific example of grey squirrels, which is fantastic to raise awareness of that. But how can we work? And we've been talking to Hedgehog Friendly Campus, because they do actions that people can take on their campus to help benefit hedgehogs, and they're looking at working with other species, so the Bat Conservation Trust, and so maybe we are talking to them, about red squirrels and what people can do in schools, in higher education institutions to benefit red squirrels. And again, we can have that discussion around the issues that they're facing, and we will continue to explore new and innovative solutions. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you very much. That was brilliant. I've got two questions, cheekily. The first one is, I might have missed this, but what's the time scale on the immunocontraceptive being available? And the second one is more about the comms side of things, which is, I thought because this is what I do. So I thought that your idea of going down the route of things like the Hedgehog Friendly Campus is a great one, because there's been such a good success with things like Hedgehog Street and also the Great British Garden Watch, the Bird Watch programme by RSPB. So I do think that is absolutely the nail for how to get it out there. But yeah, what's the timescale, please?
So we're hoping that by 2030 there will be something available. But you know how research works, and then there's the whole registration process, and where the gentleman is that talked about the kind of registration and how long that takes and all the data that will need to be collated for that. But 2030 is our goal.
Thanks for that. It was really interesting. I don't know if I missed it, but so what was the composition of the respondents that you had? So I think you had about 3,000 people complete the surveys. How were they recruited?
They were recruited by a company that DEFRA employed to do it, and so there were various different age ranges. I think they tried to have a good cross-section of the population, basically.
Okay, thank you very much. I was wondering whether you can spend a couple of words, given that we have a bit of time, on the lottery fund project, on how some of these is
on the Red
developing.
Squirrel Recovery Network. Yeah, so there is a big National Heritage Lottery Fund bid that we're working on at the moment. It's being led by Red Squirrels Northern England. It will cover Cumbria, Northumberland, Lancashire, Dumfries and Galloway, and the Scottish borders, and so it'll be a cross-border project. There's various different engagement and activities and funding within that, but one of the things that will be in it is funding for the landscape scale trials that Sarah... Do you want to talk a bit about it? Will you talk a bit about it as well? Or...
Yeah, well, the idea is that we're just going to work with volunteer groups and test contraceptive delivery methods without actually using a contraceptive. Hi. Yeah, so we're going to work with volunteers and trial our contraceptive delivery methods on a much bigger scale. So the methods I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. Yeah, basically we're going to see how that transfers on a landscape level scale. So yeah, that's basically our part of the project.
Yeah, so it will over the 5 years we'll see how in reality fertility control can be delivered on the ground, because at the moment a lot of the work in field trials have been done by researchers with a little bit of work with volunteers. So this will be looking at the landscape scale.
Do you have any information on like how it would affect predators that have predated on any of the squirrels if they've been contraceptive?
As far as I understand, because it's a protein, it breaks down very quickly in the body. So although it affects the individual eating it, because it breaks down so quickly, if something predated on it, I think they'd have to eat, oh, sorry, that's my watch, an incredible amount of them in a very short time frame after they'd just eaten it to have any effect on them.
Okay.
Before it gets broken down.